In the quiet of a Chicago night under a sky bruised by a rare blood-red lunar eclipse, Emma Carter's life ended. At 30, curled beneath a tattered blanket in a dingy apartment, she dragged a rusty shard of metal across her wrist, each stroke a silent scream against a world that had betrayed her. Her husband, Ryan Brooks, was thousands of miles away, basking in the Hawaiian sun with his new love oblivious to her fading pulse. But as Emma's vision dimmed, a cosmic rift tore through the fabric of reality, a celestial anomaly born of that eclipse, a phenomenon whispered about in ancient texts as the veil of second chances. It was no myth. In its mysterious mercy, the universe rewound their fates, spitting Emma and Ryan back into the world at 14, their memories of a broken past intact, their hearts heavy with the weight of what was and what could be. Emma awoke in her childhood bedroom in Chicago's South Side, the air thick with the scent of mildew and her father's cigarette smoke. Her heart pounded as fragments of her past life flooded back the alley where thugs nearly broke her Ryan's arms, pulling her from despair, their marriage that crumbled under his betrayal. But this time she vowed things would be different. No longer would she be the girl who clung to Ryan like a lifeline only to drown in his indifference. She was reborn, and with that rebirth came a fire to carve her path. While Ryan, armed with memories of the dot-com boom, packed a duffel bag and boarded a bus to Silicon Valley, chasing dreams of tech empires, Emma set her sights on New York City. She'd heard NYU had a top-tier computer science program, and she'd be damned if she let her past life's pain define her future. Emma threw herself into her studies in New York, her fingers flying across keyboards in dimly lit dorm rooms coding late into the night. The city's pulse matched her own relentless, vibrant, unyielding. She made friends Mia, a sharp-tongued graphic design major who loved dive bars, and Lucas, a quiet math prodigy who tutored her through calculus. Her past life had taught her to guard her heart, but these friendships cracked open her walls, letting in slivers of light. She even dipped her toes into dating, though no one quite sparked the fire Ryan once had. Her focus was her career internships at startups' hackathons, where her code outshone the competition, and a growing savings account from freelance gigs. She was building something brick by brick, which felt like freedom. Meanwhile, Ryan was making waves in California. His past life knowledge of tech trends, knowing exactly when to invest in fledgling startups like Google, turned him into a Silicon Valley wunderkind. By 25, he was a millionaire, his name splashed across TechCrunch headlines. But success didn't erase the memories of Emma, the girl he'd saved in that Chicago alley, the wife he'd failed. He pushed those thoughts aside, burying himself in work and a new relationship with Lily Parker, his assistant, a bright-eyed woman with a smile that reminded him of Emma's youth. Yet, as he built his empire, a nagging ache persisted, a ghost of what might have been. Emma, now 26, stood at a crossroads. She'd landed a job at a promising New York tech firm, her code powering apps that millions used daily. Her life was her own, unshackled from the past, but the cosmic rift that had reborn her left whispers of destiny in her dreams. Why had the universe given her this second chance? Was it to rewrite her story or to face Ryan again? She didn't know, but she felt the pull of fate, like a tide drawing her toward an inevitable collision. As Emma's story unfolds, we're diving into a tale of redemption, love, and vengeance that'll keep you glued to your screen. If you're hooked on Emma's journey, hit that like button to show some love, comment on her rebirth, and subscribe to our channel for more epic stories that twist your heart and spark your imagination. Join our community of dreamers and storytellers. Let's see where this cosmic rift takes us next. 5 years later. Emma stepped into the glittering ballroom of a Manhattan hotel, her heels clicking against polished marble. The invitation had come from Mia, who'd insisted on dragging her to a fancy networking event that turned out to be Ryan Brooks' engagement party to Lily Parker. The air buzzed with champagne flutes and the chatter of New York's elite, but Emma's stomach churned as she spotted Ryan across the room. He was taller now, his jaw sharper, his suit tailored to perfection, a far cry from the lanky boy who'd once shared her dreams under Chicago's starry skies. Beside him stood Lily, her auburn hair cascading in waves, her laughter bright but tinged with an innocence that made Emma's chest ache with memories of her lost youth. Emma hadn't seen Ryan since their rebirth and hoped to keep it that way. But oblivious to their history, Mia pulled her through the crowd, gushing about Ryan's tech empire. "He's like a billionaire now, Em. Can you believe it?" Emma forced a smile, her fingers tightening around her clutch. She'd followed Ryan's rise in the news. His startup Nexus Tech was a household name. its AI algorithms powering everything from smart homes to self-driving cars. But success hadn't softened the coldness in his eyes when they locked onto hers across the room. For a moment, time froze, their past life flashing between them, stolen kisses on rooftops, promises whispered in a cramped apartment, and the betrayal that shattered it all. Ryan turned away, his arm around Lily, playing the part of the doting fiancé. Emma exhaled, willing her heart to steady. She was here for Mia, not him. She mingled, exchanging business cards with investors, her confidence bolstered by her role as a lead developer at her firm. But the champagne flowed as the night wore on, and Ryan's facade cracked. After one too many drinks, he cornered Emma near the restrooms, his breath warm with whiskey. "Sweetheart," he slurred, his hand grazing her arm. "I miss your late-night coffee runs. Remember how you'd make me that awful decaf?" His voice was a knife slicing through years of carefully built walls. Emma froze, her pulse racing. The man before her was a stranger, yet his words dragged her back to their past life nights, when she'd brew coffee to keep him awake for factory shifts, their laughter filling a tiny kitchen. Before she could respond, Mia burst through the door, her eyes wide. "Mr. Brooks! That's my boss's girlfriend. Your fiancé's waiting outside." Ryan's face darkened, his hand dropping as if burned. Jealousy flickered in his eyes, raw and unguarded, as he registered the word girlfriend. He stumbled back, muttering an apology, but the air crackled with unspoken truths. Emma's mind spun. She hadn't told Mia about her past with Ryan, but the assumption that she was taken thanks to her close friendship with Lucas, who'd been by her side at work events, had struck a nerve. Ryan's gaze lingered, a storm of regret and longing, before he turned and rejoined Lily. Emma leaned against the wall, her breath shaky. She'd built a new life, but Ryan's presence threatened to unravel it. Lily, catching Emma's eye, offered a tentative smile, unaware of the history tying them together. Emma nodded back, her heart heavy, realizing that Lily wasn't the enemy, just a girl caught in Ryan's orbit, much like Emma once was. As the night ended, Emma stepped into the cool Manhattan air, the city's lights a stark contrast to the turmoil within her. She'd left Ryan behind in this life, but his jealousy hinted at a truth she wasn't ready to face. Their past wasn't buried. It was alive, pulsing, waiting to pull her back into chaos. But Emma was no longer the girl who needed saving. She'd face whatever came next on her own terms, her code and courage as her armor. Emma Carter's rebirth wasn't just a second chance, it was a cosmic gamble, a gift from the veil of second chances that had torn open during that blood-red lunar eclipse. She'd learned to live with the weight of two lives, her memories a double-edged sword that both guided and haunted her. At 14 in her past life, she'd been a frightened girl in a Chicago alley, her screams swallowed by the city's indifference. A gang of thugs had cornered her, their fists bruising her ribs, their laughter echoing off graffiti-stained walls. It was Ryan Brooks then, a lanky 17-year-old with fire in his eyes who'd stepped out of the shadows. His fists bloodied as he fought them off. That night, he'd pulled her from despair, his arm around her trembling shoulders as he whispered, "You're safe now, Em." That moment had bound them, a thread that stretched through years of love and betrayal, until her wrist bled out under a rusty shard. 5 days after her rebirth, Emma found herself in a Brooklyn alley, the air thick with the stench of garbage and stale beer. She was 14 again, her heart pounding as the same scene unfolded like a cruel rerun. 3 thugs' faces, half hidden in the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, circled her. "Where's your daddy, little girl?" one sneered, grabbing her hair. Emma's hand tightened around the pocket knife in her backpack, a precaution she'd taken this time, knowing the past could repeat. Her past life had taught her fear, but this life demanded fight. She kicked at the nearest thug, her sneaker connecting with his shin, but he laughed, shoving her to the ground. Pain shot through her knees as she hit the asphalt, her breath ragged. Then she saw him, Ryan, standing under the street lamp, his silhouette sharp against the night. Her heart leapt, expecting the hero from her past life. But this Ryan, now 33 in spirit, his eyes cold as steel, met her gaze for a moment. No recognition, no warmth. He turned, his footsteps fading into the distance, leaving her to the wolves. The betrayal stung worse than the thug's kick to her side. Emma's fingers closed around the knife's handle, her resolve hardening. She wasn't that girl anymore. With a scream, she lunged, slashing the blade across the lead thug's calf. Blood sprayed, and he howled, stumbling back. "Crazy bitch," he spat, grabbing her throat. Emma swung again, the knife grazing his arm. Fear flickered in his eyes, and he flung her against the wall, her head cracking against the brick. The others hesitated, glancing at their bleeding leader. "Let's go!" one shouted, and they scattered into the shadows. Emma slid to the ground, trembling, her knife still clutched tight. Blood trickled from her lip, but she smirked, a fierce pride blooming in her chest. She'd saved herself. No Ryan, no savior, just her own grit. Headlights sliced through the alley as a police cruiser screeched to a stop. A young officer, her flashlight blinding, sprinted toward Emma. "Drop the weapon," she barked, her voice sharp but steady. Emma raised the knife, her smirk widening. This thing couldn't cut butter. The officer's eyes narrowed, but a hint of amusement flickered. "Drop it anyway, kid." Emma tossed the knife aside, her hands shaking from adrenaline. As the officer cuffed her for safety, Emma's mind raced. She knew this woman from her past, Sarah Thompson, the cop who'd cracked her father's case. This was her chance not just to survive, but to rewrite her future. Sarah took Emma's statement at the precinct, her pen scratching across a notepad. "Why'd they jump you?" Emma leaned back, her voice steady despite the bruises. "Because of Jack Carter, my dad. He's a gambler, racked up debts, and killed a guy while running from collectors. Now they're taking it out on me." Sarah's brow furrowed. "You're Jack Carter's daughter." Emma's lips curled into a cold smile. Unfortunately, she twirled the pen Sarah had left on the table, her mind plotting. She'd spent her past life running from Jack's shadow, his debts, fists, and rage. This time she'd turn the tables. She said, "I know where he's hiding," meeting Sarah's gaze, "but I want a deal." The fluorescent lights of the Brooklyn precinct buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on Emma Carter's bruised face. She sat across from Officer Sarah Thompson, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp despite the ache in her ribs. Sarah, barely 23, fresh from the police academy, leaned forward, her dark ponytail swinging a deal. She repeated, her voice a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Emma nodded, her past life memories a map she intended to follow. In that other life, Sarah had been the one to nail Jack Carter, Emma's deadbeat father, for manslaughter and fraud. Emma had been a bystander then, a broken teenager shipped to a welfare home. Now she'd play her cards differently. "Adopt me," Emma said, her tone bold but laced with a tremor she couldn't hide. "I'll give you Jack's location. You catch him, and you get the promotion and the headlines. I get a home and a chance to start over. Win-win." Sarah's pen froze mid-scratch, her eyes narrowing as she studied Emma. The girl was barely 14, her clothes torn, her lips swollen, yet her words carried the weight of someone much older. Sarah leaned back, crossing her arms. "And if I say no," Emma shrugged, feigning indifference, though her heart pounded. "Then Jack keeps running and I'm back on the streets, your call." Sarah let out a sharp laugh, shaking her head. "You've got guts, kid. Obstructing justice is a crime, you know." Emma's eyes glistened, tears welling but not falling. "I want to be safe, Officer Thompson. I've slept on park benches for 4 nights. Debt collectors are at my door. I've got nowhere else to go." Her voice cracked, and the tough facade slipped for a moment, revealing the scared girl beneath. Sarah's expression softened, her past flickering in her mind. She'd grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes, always chasing stability. She sighed, tossing her notepad aside. "Fine, let's go, kid. But you better not be playing me." Sarah's Queen's apartment was small but warm, the kind of place that smelled like coffee and laundry detergent. Emma dropped her backpack by the door, her eyes scanning the cluttered shelves. Photos of Sarah in her academy uniform, a worn baseball glove, a stack of mystery novels. It felt like a home, something Emma hadn't known since her mother left when she was 6. But the peace was short-lived. Sarah's cousin, Ethan, 12, and wiry, greeted Emma with a grin too wide to trust. "Hey sis," he chirped, piling mac and cheese onto her plate at dinner. "What school are you at? Do you like video games?" His enthusiasm was disarming, but Emma's past life memories screamed a warning. She'd known Ethan in a psychiatric ward where she'd faked illness to win Ryan back, and Ethan, genuinely unstable, had tormented her with calculated cruelty. That night, as Emma lay on the couch, her mind churned. Ethan's cheerful act was a mask. She'd seen it before, in the way he'd slipped laxatives into her food at the ward, laughing as she suffered. She wasn't falling for it again. The next morning, when Ethan offered her a bowl of cereal with that same too-sweet smile, Emma swapped their bowls when he turned away. By noon, Ethan was pale, sprinting to the bathroom, his plan backfiring. Emma crouched beside him later, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You okay, little brother? Maybe go easy on the milk next time." Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he was too young to suspect her entirely, his confusion almost pitiful. Sarah, meanwhile, was digging into Jack Carter's case. Over coffee, she shared her story with Emma, her foster care days, her drive to become a cop to protect kids like herself. "I don't trust easily," Sarah admitted, her eyes sharp. "But you're not just some kid, are you? There's something old about you." Emma smiled faintly, dodging the question. She couldn't explain the veil of second chances, the cosmic force that had rewritten her fate. Instead, she handed Sarah a slip of paper with Jack's last known hideout, a dive bar in Chicago's West Side. "He's there," Emma said. "But he won't stay long." Sarah nodded, her jaw set. "If this pans out, you've got a home with me, Emma. No welfare homes, no bullshit." As Sarah left for a stakeout, Emma settled into her new reality, her guard up against Ethan's schemes, but her heart softening toward Sarah's gruff kindness. The veil had given her a chance to rewrite her story, but the ghosts of her past Ryan, Jack, and her own pain loomed large. She'd need every ounce of her cunning to stay ahead, to build a life worth living. Emma Carter's new life in Sarah Thompson's Queen's apartment was a fragile sanctuary, starkly contrasting the chaos of her past life. The veil of second chances, that cosmic rift sparked by a lunar eclipse, had given her a fresh start, but it hadn't erased the scars of her memories. At 14, she was no stranger to survival, her mind sharpened by 30 years of a previous life filled with betrayal and loss. With its mismatched furniture and the faint hum of a radio playing classic rock, Sarah's home offered a flicker of hope, a chance to belong somewhere. But Ethan, Sarah's 12-year-old cousin, was a wild card, his bright smile hiding a cunning Emma knew all too well from their past life encounters in a Chicago psychiatric ward. Ethan's first move came at breakfast, his eyes glinting as he slid a bowl of cereal across the table. "Made it special for you, sis," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. Emma's stomach twisted. She'd seen that grin before when he'd slipped laxatives into her food in the ward, laughing as she doubled over in pain. She wasn't falling for it again. When Ethan turned to grab milk, she swapped their bowls, her movements swift and silent. By noon, Ethan was green, clutching the bathroom doorframe, his prank backfiring spectacularly. Emma crouched beside him, her voice laced with mock concern. "Rough morning, huh? Maybe check your ingredients next time." Ethan's glare was sharp, but his youth betrayed him. He hadn't learned to mask his frustration, and Emma relished the small victory. Life with Sarah was a different kind of challenge. The young officer, barely out of the academy, was gruff but kind, her tough exterior hiding a heart shaped by her foster care struggles. Over pizza one evening, Sarah opened up, her voice low as she stirred her soda. "Grew up in homes like yours, Emma. I never had a real family. They just signed papers for the paycheck. That's why I became a cop, to keep kids like us from falling through the cracks." Emma nodded, her throat tight. Sarah's sincerity was a lifeline, but Emma guarded her secret, the veil, the rebirth, the weight of two lives. She couldn't risk Sarah thinking she was crazy. Emma threw herself into her studies at school, and her past life knowledge gave her an edge in math and coding classes. She joined the robotics club, her fingers steady as she wired circuits, her mind dreaming of a future in tech. But Ethan was a constant shadow, his pranks escalating. He spilled juice on her backpack one day, smirking as she mopped it up. Emma retaliated by slipping a whoopee cushion under his chair during dinner, earning a laugh from Sarah and a scowl from Ethan. Their rivalry was a dance, each step calculated, rooted in their past life battles, where Emma had learned his tricks the hard way. Sarah, meanwhile, was closing in on Jack Carter, Emma's father. Using Emma's tip, she tracked him to a dive bar in Chicago's West Side, coordinating with local police for a sting. Late one night, she returned home, her uniform rumpled, her eyes bright with triumph. "We got him, Emma. Jackson, custody, manslaughter, fraud, the works." Emma's heart raced, a mix of relief and dread. She'd betrayed her father, but he'd never been a father, just a storm of rage and debt. Sarah sat beside her, her voice soft. "You're not going anywhere, okay? This is your home now." Emma's eyes stung, and she nodded the word home, a promise she'd never dared believe. But Ethan's presence kept her on edge. She caught him rifling through her backpack one evening, his fingers pausing on a photo of her mother long gone. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone too casual. Emma snatched it back, her voice sharp. "None of your business." Ethan's grin faded, a flicker of something darker in his eyes. Jealousy, maybe, or something more profound. Emma knew his history, diagnosed with a personality disorder at 8, abandoned by parents who favored his younger brother. Sarah had taken him in hoping to save him, but Emma saw the cracks in his facade. She'd outsmart him, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was more than a prankster. He was a puzzle one she'd need to solve to keep her new life intact. Emma Carter stepped into the fluorescent glow of a Brooklyn convenience store, the bell above the Mateusz Sobkovich, her colleague from the robotics club, by her side. The air smelled of cheap coffee and floor cleaner, a sharp contrast to the glittering Manhattan ballroom where she'd last seen Ryan Brooks, now a tech billionaire engaged to Lily Parker. Emma hadn't planned to cross paths with Ryan again, but fate, or perhaps the lingering pull of the veil of second chances, had other plans. She was 16 now, and living in Queens with Sarah Thompson was a fragile stability she'd fought to build. She grabbed a soda from the cooler, her mind on her latest coding project, a mobile app for her school's science fair, when she froze. There by the candy aisle was Ryan, his cart filled with snacks, gummy bears, and chocolate bars which he used to buy for her in their past life. Ryan's eyes met hers, and for a moment the world narrowed to just them. He was different, polished, his Silicon Valley success evident in his crisp button-down, but his eyes held the same intensity that had once made her feel safe. Beside him stood Lily, her auburn curls bouncing as she laughed at something he said. Lily was 20 and vibrant, with a smile that reminded Emma of her youth before betrayal hardened her heart. Emma's chest tightened, memories of their past life flooding back, Ryan's arm around her in a Chicago alley, their laughter in a cramped apartment, his affair with Lily that drove Emma to her death. She pushed the memories down, her jaw set. She wasn't that girl anymore. Ryan's gaze flickered with recognition, but he turned away, his hand on Lily's back, guiding her toward the counter. Emma's heart thudded, a mix of anger and something softer, regret maybe. She focused on the soda in her hand, willing herself to stay composed. Mateusz nudged her, oblivious. "Hey, isn't that the Nexus Tech guy, Ryan Brooks?" Emma nodded, her voice tight. "Yeah, let's go." But before they could leave, Ryan approached his steps, hesitant, Lily trailing behind with a bag of snacks. Ryan's voice was low testing. "Been a while." His casual tone grated, as if their past life years of love and pain could be brushed off like dust. Emma forced a smile, her voice cool. "Congrats on the engagement, Mr. Brooks." Lily smiled shyly, unaware of the history tying them. "Thanks for coming to the party," she said, her voice warm. Emma nodded, her throat tight. Lily wasn't the enemy, just a girl caught in Ryan's orbit like Emma had been. Ryan's eyes lingered, a storm brewing behind his calm facade. "You look good, Em. New York suits you." The nickname stung, a reminder of nights spent dreaming of a future that never came. Emma's smile tightened. "I'm doing fine. I got a scholarship, and I'm coding my way up." She gestured to Mateusz, who grinned, proud of her. "She's killing it at school," he said. Ryan's jaw twitched, a flicker of jealousy in his eyes. He opened his mouth, but Lily tugged his arm. "Ryan, we're late for dinner." He nodded, his gaze lingering a moment longer. "Stay out of my life, Emma," he said quietly, his voice cold but brittle. "We're strangers now." The words cut deeper than she expected, echoing their past life's end, when Ryan had chosen Lily over her. Emma's nails dug into her palms, but she held her ground. "Don't worry, I have no plans to crash your perfect world." She turned, Mateusz following, and stepped into the humid Brooklyn night. The city's pulse car horns, distant sirens matched her racing heart. Ryan's words were a challenge, a dare to prove she didn't need him. She thought of Sarah, who'd given her a home, and her coding projects, which promised a future she'd built herself. But Ryan's presence was a crack in her armor, a reminder that the veil's gift came with a price. The past was never truly gone. Lily's face haunted her as she walked home, her innocence mirroring Emma's lost youth. Emma had hated Lily, once blaming her for Ryan's betrayal. But now, seeing her in person, Emma felt the hatred dissolve, replaced by a strange pity. Lily was young, unaware of the ghosts she carried in Ryan's heart. Emma's new life, her coding, her bond with Sarah, was hers to protect. She wouldn't let Ryan's shadow unravel it. Emma Carter stood outside the Brooklyn courthouse, the autumn wind tugging at her scarf as she watched her father, Jack Carter, being led away in handcuffs. The veil of second chances, that cosmic rift sparked by a lunar eclipse, had given her this moment a chance to rewrite the pain of her past life, where Jack's gambling debts and violence had left her broken. At 16, Emma was no longer the scared girl who'd cowered from his fists. Her past life memories were a weapon, and she'd wielded them with precision to bring him down. It started with a rumor one Emma planted with surgical care. She tracked down Jack's old lackey Tommy, a wiry man who hung out at a dive bar in Chicago's West Side. Over a burner phone, she fed him a lie. Their family's old South Side house was slated for demolition with a $1 million payout for the property owner, but Jack had to show up in person to claim it. In her past life, Sarah Thompson, the rookie cop who'd taken Emma in, had followed a similar trail to catch Jack, but not until he'd squandered every penny. This time, Emma acted first. Tommy, greedy and unquestioning, relayed the news, and Jack, unable to resist the lure of easy money, surfaced like a rat from hiding. Sarah took Emma's tip and coordinated with Chicago PD to set up a sting at the bar. 2 weeks later, Emma sat in Sarah's Queens apartment, the TV flickering with news of Jack's arrest, manslaughter, fraud, and a string of unpaid debts. Sarah burst through the door, her uniform wrinkled, her eyes bright with triumph. "We got him, Emma," she said, tossing her badge on the counter. "Caught him with a duffel full of fake IDs. He's not slipping away this time." Emma's heart surged, a mix of relief and cold satisfaction. She'd outsmarted the man who'd haunted her for 2 lifetimes. Emma sat in the back at the trial, her hands clasped tightly. Jack's eyes found her in the crowd, his face twisting with rage. "You little traitor!" he snarled, his voice echoing in the courtroom, "just like your damn mother. When I get out, I'll break your legs." The words stung, but Emma held his gaze, her expression blank. In her past life, she'd spent years wondering if her mother's abandonment and Jack's abuse were her fault, if her grades weren't good enough, if she'd been too much of a burden. Now at 16, she saw the truth. Jack was a monster, and her mother's love had been too small to matter. They'd never defined her worth. Sarah, sitting beside her, squeezed Emma's hand. "He's going away for a long time, kid." "You did well." Emma nodded, her throat tight. Sarah's promise of adoption was more than a deal now, a bond forged in trust. Over dinner that night, Sarah shared more of her story, her voice soft as she spoke of her foster care days, the loneliness that drove her to become a cop. "I wanted to save kids like you, like me," she said, her eyes meeting Emma's. "You're not just a case, Emma. You're family." The word hit Emma like a wave, warm and overwhelming. She'd spent 2 lives chasing a home, and here it was in Sarah's cluttered apartment with its worn couch and the faint smell of coffee. But Ethan, Sarah's cousin, was a thorn in her side. His pranks had slowed since the cereal incident, but his presence was a constant challenge. One evening, he accidentally knocked over Emma's laptop, smirking as she scrambled to save her coding project. Emma retaliated by hiding his favorite comic book in the freezer, her own smirk matching his when he found it soggy. Their rivalry was a game, but Emma saw the cracks in Ethan's facade, his diagnosis, his abandonment by his parents, the way he clung to Sarah's approval. She kept her guard up, knowing the veil's gift didn't erase the past's dangers. Jack was gone, but her fight for a new life was far from over. Emma threw herself into school, and her coding skills earned her a scholarship and a spot in a national hackathon. Her app, a tool to connect foster kids with mentors, was gaining traction, and she dreamed of a career that could change lives. But Ryan Brooks's shadow lingered, his cold words at the convenience store echoing in her mind. "We're strangers now." She pushed him out, focusing on the future, Sarah's promised ambition, and the fragile peace she'd built in Queens. Emma Carter navigated the crowded halls of her Brooklyn high school, her backpack heavy with textbooks and her mind buzzing with code. At 16, she was a force. Her past life memories, gifted by the veil of second chances, gave her an edge in her computer science classes, where she debugged programs with a precision that stunned her teachers. Her app for foster kids was a finalist in a national competition, and whispers of internships at top New York tech firms followed her. But school wasn't just about coding. It was a battlefield where she faced Ethan Thompson, Sarah's cunning cousin, whose pranks kept her on edge. Ethan, now 13 and in 7th grade, had ditched his fake limp, but his mischievous grin was a constant. He'd accidentally spill soda on her notes or hide her phone, forcing Emma to stay sharp. She fought back once, slipping a fake spider into his lunch bag, his yelp echoing through the cafeteria. Their rivalry, rooted in their past life clashes in a psychiatric ward, was a delicate balance of wit and wariness. Emma knew Ethan's diagnosis, a personality disorder that made him unpredictable, but she also saw his need for Sarah's approval, a mirror to her own longing for family. One crisp October afternoon, Emma was walking home through a narrow Brooklyn alley, the same kind that had haunted her past life. She froze, hearing a familiar voice, Lily Parker, Ryan Brooks's fiancée, surrounded by a group of girls from a rival school. Lily, barely 18, stood with her shoulders hunched, her auburn curls falling over her tear-streaked face, as the leader, a tall girl with a sneer, accused her of stealing a fountain pen. "You were the only one in the room, thief," the girl shouted, shoving Lily against a dumpster. Emma's heart raced, memories of her own alley attacks flooding back. She hated Lily, once blaming her for Ryan's betrayal in their past life, but seeing her now, small, scared, alone, stirred something else: compassion. "Hey," Emma called, stepping into the alley, her voice sharp. "What's this 5 against 1, real heroic?" The girls turned startled, and the leader scoffed. "Mind your business." Emma smirked, her hand in her pocket, gripping her keys like a weapon. "Is she stealing that pen before you, or are you just picking on the new girl?" The leader faltered, her confidence cracking. She was alone in the classroom. Emma stepped closer, her gaze steady. "No proof, no crime. Walk away." The girls muttered, then scattered, leaving Lily trembling. Emma turned to her, softening. "You okay? Stay out of alleys, Lily. They're trouble." Lily nodded, her voice small. "Thanks," she mumbled, then bolted, her fear palpable. Emma's act of kindness didn't go unnoticed. The next day, Ryan stormed into Sarah's apartment, his face flushed with anger. "What the hell?" "Emma," he roared Sarah out on a shift. "Lily was sick all day, vomiting and shaking. What did you give her?" Emma's mind raced, landing on the expired sandwich she'd packed for Ethan, meant as a prank. It had vanished from her bag yesterday. She glanced at Ethan, lounging on the couch, his smirk barely hidden. He'd seen Lily take it and said nothing, letting the chaos unfold. "Ask your sister." Emma snapped, her voice cold. "She's the one who took it." Lily peeked from behind Ryan, her face pale. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was hungry. I didn't know it wasn't good." Emma's anger softened. Lily's orphanage upbringing, her habit of taking what she needed to survive, mirrored Emma's past struggles. But Ryan wasn't listening. He grabbed Emma's arm, his grip tight. "You're still the same, always causing trouble." Before Emma could pull free, Ethan leapt up, his fist slamming into Ryan's jaw. "Hands off her," he shouted, his eyes blazing. Ryan stumbled, shocked, as Ethan stood protectively before Emma, his small frame trembling with fury. The room crackled with tension. Ryan wiped blood from his lip, his gaze darting between Emma and Ethan. "You've got a new guard dog," he sneered, but his voice wavered, betraying jealousy. Emma's heart pounded. She hadn't expected Ethan's defense, nor the warmth it sparked in her chest. Lily tugged Ryan's sleeve, her voice soft. "Let's go, Ryan. I'm fine." As they left, Emma met Ethan's gaze, his smirk gone, replaced by something raw, unguarded. She saw the boy beneath the pranks, the one fighting his own demons, and for the first time she wondered if their rivalry could become something more. The Queen's apartment was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic filtering through the cracked window. Emma Carter sat on the worn couch, her heart racing from the confrontation with Ryan Brooks. At 16, she carried the weight of 2 lives, her past life memories a gift and a curse from the veil of second chances, that cosmic rift sparked by a lunar eclipse. Ryan's grip on her arm, his accusation that she'd poisoned Lily with a stolen sandwich, had reopened old wounds. But it was Ethan Thompson, Sarah's 13-year-old cousin, who'd shocked her most, his fist slamming into Ryan's jaw with a force that belied his wiry frame. "Hands off her," Ethan had shouted, standing protectively in front of her, his eyes blazing with a mix of fury and something more profound, something that made Emma's breath catch. Now alone in the apartment, Sarah, still at the precinct, met Ethan's gaze. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by a raw intensity that unnerved her. She knew him from their past life in a Chicago psychiatric ward where she'd faked illness to win Ryan back, and Ethan, genuinely unstable, had tormented her with calculated cruelty. But this Ethan, younger and still learning to mask his disorder, was different. "You okay?" he asked, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. Emma nodded, her throat tight. "Thanks for that. Didn't expect you to play hero." Ethan shrugged, sitting beside her, his knee brushing hers. He muttered he didn't like his hands on you, his cheeks flushing. Emma's heart skipped. She'd spent months outsmarting his pranks, from swapped cereal bowls to hidden spiders. But this was new. She saw the boy beneath the schemes, the one abandoned by parents who favored his younger brother, the one clinging to Sarah's care. Ethan's diagnosis, a personality disorder marked by impulsivity and manipulation, made him unpredictable, but his therapy sessions, which Sarah insisted he attend, hinted at a desire to change. "You're not as tough as you think, Emma," he said, his voice teasing but gentle. "I see you." the words hit harder than she expected. That night, as moonlight spilled through the window, Ethan leaned closer, his breath warm. "I've been a jerk, I know. But I like you, Emma. More than I should." Before she could process, he kissed her, his lips urgent, hungry, laced with a desperation that mirrored her own buried longing. Emma froze her past life with Ryan flashing through her mind, his kisses, promises, and betrayal. But Ethan wasn't Ryan. She kissed him back, her heart pounding, a spark igniting in the space between them. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "This doesn't mean I trust you, Ethan." He grinned, his eyes bright. "Good. Keeps it interesting." The next morning, Emma woke with a mix of exhilaration and fear. She cared for Ethan, but Sarah was her anchor, the cop who'd adopted her and given her a home. Risking that bond for a boy with a troubled past felt reckless. Yet Ethan's protectiveness lingered in her mind, contrasting Ryan's cold dismissal. At school, she threw herself into her coding, her app for foster kids winning a regional award, catching the eye of a New York tech startup. Sarah, proud but gruff, framed the certificate on the apartment wall. "You're going places, kid," she said, her voice warm. "Don't let anyone, especially my idiot cousin, mess that up." Emma nodded, but Ethan's confession had shifted something. Their rivalry softened, replaced by stolen glances and late-night talks about his therapy, her dreams, their shared scars. He admitted his pranks were a way to feel in control, a shield against the parents who'd discarded him. Emma shared fragments of her past life, not the veil, but the pain of abandonment, the weight of surviving Jack Carter's chaos. Their bond grew fragile, but real, a thread weaving through the chaos of their second chance. But Ryan's shadow loomed. His jealousy at the convenience store, his accusation about Lily hinted at feelings he couldn't bury. Emma knew the veil had tied their fates, but she was determined to write her own ending, not Ryan's, not Jack's, but hers. As she coded late into the night, her fingers dancing across the keyboard, she felt the future within reach, a career, a family, a life she'd fought for. Ethan's hand brushed hers as he brought her coffee, and she smiled, wondering if he'd be part of that future. The Manhattan Hotel ballroom glittered under chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of roses and champagne. Emma Carter, now 18, stood in a sleek black dress, her colleague Mia by her side. She hadn't wanted to come to Ryan Brooks' engagement party for Lily Parker, but Mia, the networker, had insisted, calling it a chance to pitch Emma's foster care app to investors. The veil of second chances, that cosmic rift that had reborn Emma and Ryan, seemed to mock her with this reunion. She'd built a life in New York, top of her class at NYU, a summer internship at a tech startup, a family with Sarah Thompson, but Ryan's presence threatened to unravel it all. He stood across the room, his tailored suit accentuating his Silicon Valley polish, Lily radiant beside him in a cream gown. Emma's heart twisted, memories of their past life flooding back, Ryan's laughter in their Chicago apartment, his promises of forever, his betrayal with Lily. She pushed them down, focusing on the investors circling her, impressed by her app's demo. But Ryan's gaze found her heavy with unspoken words. As the night wore on, the champagne loosened his restraint. He cornered her near the restrooms, his breath sharp with whiskey. "Emma," he murmured, his hand grazing her shoulder. "I can't stop thinking about you. Those summer nights, your coffee runs. Let's go back." Emma's pulse raced, anger and longing warring within her. She saw their past life, Ryan's arms around her, their dreams of a better future, then his affair, her suicide. "You're engaged, Ryan," she said, her voice icy. "Go back to Lily." His eyes darkened, jealousy flickering as he leaned closer. "You're with that kid, Ethan. He's nothing compared to us." Before she could respond, Mia burst in, yanking Ryan back. "Mr. Brooks, she's taken. Your fiancé's waiting." Ryan stumbled, his face a mask of regret, but he left, leaving Emma shaken. Back at the table, Lily caught Emma's eye, her smile tentative. Emma knew Lily's story, now raised in an orphanage, her habit of stealing born from survival, not malice. At a recent school event, Lily had apologized for the sandwich incident, her voice soft. "I was hungry, Emma. I'm trying to change." Emma had nodded, her hatred fading. Lily wasn't the villain, just a girl caught in Ryan's orbit, much like Emma once was. But Ryan's words lingered, a reminder of the veil's cruel pull tying their fates across lifetimes. Days later, Ryan's pursuit intensified. A package arrived at Emma's dorm, a custom dress backless designed to highlight the butterfly-shaped birthmark between her shoulder blades, a detail only Ryan knew from their past life. A note read, "Wear it for me, Em." Emma's blood ran cold, his audacity, his assumption she'd bend infuriated her. While visiting from his own NYU dorm, Ethan saw the dress and froze, his eyes narrowing. "He sent this," he asked, his voice tight. Emma nodded, tossing it aside. He's delusional. But Ethan's jaw clenched, his fingers trembling as he stormed out, jealousy consuming him. Emma chased him to the campus quad, the night air sharp. "Ethan, wait," she called, grabbing his arm. His eyes were wild, his therapy-honed control fraying. "He knows you, Emma, more than I ever will." She saw the boy beneath the anger, the one fighting his disorder, his fear of losing her. "He's my past," she said, her voice steady. "You're my now." Ethan's shoulders sagged, but he didn't speak, his silence a storm. Emma's heart ached. She cared for Ethan, but Ryan's persistence was a test one. The veil seemed determined to force her through. Her career was her anchor. Her app had secured funding, and she led a team at her internship, her code shaping lives. Sarah Proud had taken her to dinner, sharing stories of her own journey, her marriage to a kind teacher, her hopes for a family. "You're my kid, Emma," Sarah said, her voice gruff, "no matter what." But as Emma walked home, Ethan's absence gnawed at her. She'd chosen him, but Ryan's shadow loomed, and the veil's gift felt like a trap pulling her toward a collision she couldn't avoid. The underground parking garage beneath Emma Carter's New York office was a maze of concrete and shadows, the air heavy with exhaust and the distant hum of the city. At 18, Emma was a rising star at her tech startup, her foster care app now funded and set to launch nationwide. The veil of second chances, that cosmic rift sparked by a lunar eclipse, had given her this life, but its gift came with ghosts. She'd built a home with Sarah Thompson, her adoptive mother, and a fragile romance with Ethan, Sarah's cousin, whose fierce loyalty had begun to outshine his troubled past. Yet Ryan Brooks, her past life husband, loomed like a storm. His persistent pursuit gifts, notes that backless dress exploiting her butterfly-shaped birthmark, threatening to unravel her carefully constructed world. Emma's heels echoed as she hurried toward her car, her phone buzzing with a text from Ethan, who was at NYU finishing a physics project. "Home soon. Made your favorite pasta." She smiled, her heart warming at the thought of him, but a prickle of unease stopped her cold. Footsteps heavy and deliberate followed her. She ducked behind a pillar, her pulse racing, and peered out. Jack Carter. Her father stood under a flickering light, his face gaunt from prison, his eyes wild with rage. Released early on a technicality, he'd tracked her down, his debts and grudges, fueling a vendetta. "You little bitch," he snarled, spotting her. "You put me away and now you're living large, I'll make you pay." Emma's hand tightened around her keys, her years of martial arts training kicking in. She'd sworn never to be his victim again. Jack lunged, grabbing her collar, his fist raised. Before she could strike, a figure barreled into him, Ryan Brooks, his suit rumpled, his face fierce. "Let her go," he roared, tackling Jack to the ground. Emma stumbled back, her breath hitching, as Jack pulled a knife from his jacket, its blade glinting. Ryan shoved Emma behind him, but Jack was faster, the knife plunging into Ryan's chest with a sickening thud. Blood bloomed across his shirt as he collapsed, gasping. Emma screamed, her training forgotten as panic surged. She kneed Jack in the groin, her years of classes paying off, as he howled, dropping the knife. Security guards rushed in, pinning Jack to the concrete as Emma dialed 911, her hands shaking. "Stay with me, Ryan," she whispered, pressing her scarf to his wound, her voice breaking. His eyes, heavy with pain, met hers. "I'm sorry, Em," he murmured, "for everything." The ambulance arrived, paramedics swarming, and Emma stepped back, her mind reeling. The veil had tied their fates, but she hadn't expected this. Ryan, the man who'd betrayed her, risking his life for her. At the hospital, Emma sat in the waiting room, her clothes stained with Ryan's blood. Ethan arrived, his face pale, Lily Parker trailing behind. Lily, now 19, her auburn curls pulled back, approached Emma, her voice soft. "I heard what happened. Is he—" Emma shook her head, unable to speak. Lily sat beside her, her hands twisting. "I knew you from the engagement party," she admitted. "Ryan talked about you, constantly comparing me to you. I grew up in an orphanage, Emma. Stealing, surviving, that's all I knew. I thought he loved me, but it was always you." Her eyes glistened, her vulnerability raw. "I'm leaving him. I deserve better." Emma nodded, a weightlifter. Lily wasn't her enemy, just a girl searching for her second chance. As Ryan fought for his life in surgery, Emma slipped, answering a doctor's question with, "I'm his wife." The words escaped instinctively, a relic of their past life. Ethan overheard his expression, unreadable, a storm brewing in his eyes. Emma's heart sank. She cared for Ethan, his loyalty, his growth through therapy, but Ryan's sacrifice had stirred old ghosts. Sarah arrived, her cop instincts sharp, coordinating with security to ensure Jack's rearrest. He's going back to prison, she told Emma, her voice firm. Attempted murder, parole violation, he's done. Emma clung to Sarah, her anchor, as the hospital's sterile hum drowned out her fears. Ethan's silence, though, was a blade, and she wondered if the veil's gift would cost her the love she'd found. Emma Carter stood in her small New York apartment, the morning sun filtering through the blinds, casting stripes across the hardwood floor. At 19, she was a force her foster care app had launched, connecting thousands of kids with mentors, earning her a feature in Wired as a tech prodigy. The veil of second chances, that cosmic rift that had reborn her and Ryan Brooks, had given her this life, but its weight lingered. Jack Carter, her father, was back in prison, his attack on her in the parking garage, sealing his fate with a 20-year sentence. Ryan's sacrifice, taking a knife meant for her, had shaken her, but it was Ethan Thompson, Sarah's cousin, who held her heart, his fierce love a light in her rebuilt world. Ethan had left after the hospital, his silence after Emma's slip, calling herself Ryan's wife, cutting deeper than she'd expected. He'd taken his things, leaving only a spare key and a note, "I need time." Emma hadn't chased him. Her past life with Ryan taught her that forcing love only led to pain. She threw herself into work, leading her startup's expansion, her code shielding against heartbreak. Sarah, now married to a gentle teacher named Mark, remained her rock. Over coffee in their Queen's kitchen, Sarah shared her dreams of starting a family, her voice soft. "You're my kid, Emma, always, but I want you to have what I didn't, a real home." Emma's eyes stung Sarah's words a balm. "You're my home," she whispered, and Sarah hugged her, her gruff laugh hiding tears. Ryan recovered, but his visits to Emma's office grew desperate. He showed up one afternoon, his face gaunt, his eyes pleading. "I messed up, Em," he said, his voice hoarse. "I loved you, always did. Give me another chance." Emma's heart ached, memories of their past life, his late-night factory shifts to buy her a computer, their scooter rides by the Chicago River flooding back. But she saw the truth. Now love wasn't enough when trust was broken. "You don't get it, Ryan," she said, her voice steady. "In our last life, I died. Suicide right here." She lifted her wrist, tracing the faint scar from another time. "You were in Hawaii with Lily on your honeymoon. Where were you when I needed you?" Ryan's face crumpled, his mouth opening, but no words came. He hadn't known or had buried it, the guilt too heavy. "I didn't," he stammered, then bolted, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Emma exhaled, a weight lifted. She'd faced him, laid bare the truth, and it set her free. Lily, too, had moved on, enrolling in a community college, and she texts Emma with hope. "I'm studying art," she wrote. "Thanks for showing me I could be more." Emma smiled, proud of the girl who'd found her own path. Then Ethan returned. Emma found him at her apartment door, his NYU backpack slung over one shoulder, his cheeks flushed from the cold. "I'm an idiot," he said, his voice low. "I heard you call yourself his wife, and I lost it. But I can't let you go, Emma. I'm staying if there's even a piece of your heart for me." His eyes, once shadowed by his disorder, were clear, his therapy giving him tools to fight his demons. Emma laughed, pulling him inside. "You run away and come back the same day, pathetic." He grinned, his arms wrapping around her. "I love you," she whispered, the words true, unburdened by the past. "Let's make it official." They married a month later in a small Queen ceremony, Sarah beaming as she walked Emma down the aisle. Ryan sent a gift, a coffee maker, a nod to their past, but didn't attend his absence, a final closure. Emma and Ethan fought, bickered, and loved fiercely, their bond forged in shared scars and second chances. Emma's career soared, her startup was acquired for millions, and her wealth is funding scholarships for foster kids. Sarah, now pregnant, called Emma weekly, her voice sharp but warm. "Get your ass home for the holidays, kid, Mark's cooking." As Emma and Ethan stood on their balcony, the New York skyline glittering, she felt the veils pull fade. The past was buried, Ryan's regret, Jack's rage, her own pain. She'd built a life, a family, a love that was hers. Ethan kissed her wrist, his voice soft. "I'll treat you right, Em, always." She smiled, her heart full. The veil had given her a second chance, and she'd made it her own.